The level of response was definitely a stark contrast to what I'd seen in Houston after Harvey and Florida after Irma, where the government seemed far better prepared.
Has FEMA been good? Has it been helping out?
Wonderful.
Just over a week after the storms hit,
all the stuff from the ice boxes.
The federal government had 3 times as many people on the ground in Texas and twice as many in Florida as it did in Puerto Rico.
So just make sure that you and your neighbors are aware of that.
Local emergency managers on the mainland were well-financed and ready to respond. 9 days into the disaster, federal officials had handed out on average twice as much water and more than 4 times as many meals and tarps in Houston and Florida. Is there any reason to believe that supplies were better pre-positioned in Harvey in Texas and in Irma in Florida than they were in Maria in Puerto Rico?
I don't think so. I think what we need to evaluate is whether we had enough. I do know we had supplies. I do know we had, but did we have enough for a Category 4 storm?
Right.
Probably not.
FEMA's own documents point to problems beyond supplies. At the time of Maria, the agency was stretched so thin, half of its staff on the island were trainees or unqualified for this kind of disaster work. One government email described the troubles with shipping. "We cannot survive any longer with any delay of material. I need solutions." And while there was controversy about Puerto Rico hiring a company called Whitefish that had no experience restoring power grids, few knew that the federal government had done a similar thing.
All of a sudden, about the 8th day in, the administration asked us to be able to step up and to be able to take on this mission of grid repair. But it is not something that we even planned on doing in any kind of a disaster. We don't do grid repair, usually, normally, doctrinally. So then when you got the mission, the question is, how long does it take to write a contract? We can't afford that process.
To expedite the process, the Corps turned to one of its largest standing contractors, Fluor, a company with experience building power plants, but no experience putting power grids back together. And were you satisfied with them?
I was satisfied with them. Now, you're going to ask me, why should it take, 7 months to get Puerto Rico up and running?
Why is it taking 7 months to get Puerto Rico up and running?
I'm not satisfied with the level of response that it takes to get people electricity. However, when you understand the level of devastation and the fact that this system was 40 to 45 years old, been broken already by a couple different storms, here's the other thing, Laura.
But given all of those challenges and difficulties,
right,
is 7 months for power restoration the best that the Corps can do?
I think in this particular occasion, with the challenges we had, I think it was the best the Corps could do.
You know, you got a Blue Roof program that's months behind. You've got hundreds of thousands of tarps that never arrived. You've got a power restoration company that has no experience restoring power. You've got materials stuck on docks in Florida and Puerto Rico. You've got a quarter of your workforce unqualified. How is any of this okay?
First of all, I don't agree with all of your characterizations of the situation there, and that I think we've done a lot of support. How can you look at the fact that we gave $1 billion in assistance out, that we've given out 62 million liters of water, 52 million meals to the people? How can you categorize that as not providing assistance? I find that it doesn't connect,
Because at the end of the day, you have 3.5 million Americans who spent months in the dark, sometimes without water. Is this really the best that FEMA can do?
I constantly look to get better, but if there's a villain here, if there's a thing, it's the 190-mile-an-hour winds and the 50 inches of rain. That's the villain. That's what did the damage to the people. We've done nothing but try to remedy that. You've found a number of places where we weren't perfect. I'll accept that. Bring it on. Okay, I'm going to keep working to get better.
7 months after Maria, more than 100,000 Puerto Ricans are still without power, and the island is routinely experiencing outages.